smiled, saying, "Don't worry. Our starry dragon interstellar empire will never become like this." Zhao Chen secretly vowed in his heart. "Your Majesty, this time you came in person, isn't that a bit risky?" The vice captain couldn't help but ask worriedly. "What's risky about that?" Zhao Chen sat back on his throne and shrugged. The vice captain stood beside Zhao Chun and said, "The recent incident involving the Mayha's interstellar empire feels very strange. I have a feeling there's a big conspiracy behind it. Honestly, you could have let others handle this meeting, but you chose to come yourself. If I don't come personally, how can I know if there are any important figures behind this event?" Zhao Chen smiled slightly, with a hint of coldness in his expression. "Report. A fleet of starships has been spotted ahead. They have identified themselves as the personal guard fleet of Prince Midos of the Mayha's interstellar empire," the bridge officer reported. Soon after, the officer added, "They are requesting a video communication." "Connect it," Zhao Chen said calmly. A blurry video window appeared. Due to the fractured universe, many signals are disturbed here, including quantum communications. While not completely blocked, the image is often unclear. But it was still possible to see that the person on the screen was a richly dressed Mayha's person. "Hello, Your Majesty the Starry Dragon Emperor. I am Prince Midos of the Mayha's interstellar empire. It is an honor to meet you here. I apologize for some of the incidents that happened within our borders. I am deeply saddened by the current situation. However, I want to say that this is not the outcome we, the Mayha's interstellar empire, wanted. We have no intention of declaring war on the Starry Dragon Interstellar Empire. We hope to have a friendly exchange here, to clear up misunderstandings between us, and to handle this matter properly. This can help prevent unnecessary conflicts. I believe neither side wants to see such an outcome." From the attitude of the seventh prince, Midos, it seems sincere. "How do you plan to proceed with the talks?" Zhao Chen asked calmly. "According to the agreed process, each side will send one interstellar shuttle to meet in the middle area. Other combat starships are not allowed to enter this zone. Negotiators from both sides will communicate on the shuttle. As leaders, we must also be present. Does Your Majesty the Emperor have any objections?" The seventh prince, Midos, looked sincerely at Emperor Xiaolong. "No, we will follow your plan," Zhao Chen replied calmly. He looked forward to meeting Emperor Xiaolong. No matter how this is ultimately resolved, since it happened within our Mahi Star Empire, we cannot avoid responsibility. "I will apologize to you in person," the seventh prince, Midos, said very sincerely. Zhao Chen stood up, a slight smile on his face. "I want to see what these people are really up to." Soon, both fleets stopped at a distance from each other. Note that all starships are facing outward, with weapons and cannons aimed outside. The weapons are retractable, and all are currently closed. Then, all starship engines were shut down, causing them to hover in place. This was to prevent any misunderstandings during the leaders' meeting. Next, each side sent one interstellar shuttle to approach. Before docking, both sides released small drones to scan each other's ships. This method is also used to prevent any dangerous weapons from being inside the other person's interstellar shuttle. This scanning process ensures safety. The entire process went smoothly. The two shuttles docked successfully in the middle. The doors between the two shuttles opened. Zhao Chen looked up and gazed across the door. There were 10 people on each side. But actually, only 5 people from Zhao Chen's side participated in the meeting. The other 5 were led by the leopard girl, who was the personal guard. "Hello, Emperor Xiaolong." A person from the Mayha's empire bowed politely from the crowd. "This person is Prince Midos, the 7th prince of the Mayha's interstellar empire, and the current real ruler of the empire." "Hello," Zhao Chen nodded slightly. In normal times, this attitude might cause disagreement, but given the current situation, Emperor Xiaolong's calm attitude is acceptable. "First, I want to say on behalf of the Mayha's empire that we are very sorry about the attack on our delegation from the Xiaolong Empire. We are willing to pay the highest compensation to those harmed. I personally will give each family 10,000 crystal coins as condolence." Prince Midos sincerely said, "This compensation is what I should do, no matter whether my brother is involved or not." Prince Midos's attitude was very sincere. Zhao Chen coldly asked, "If the mastermind behind this incident is your brother, how would you handle it?" Prince Midos hesitated for a long time. He clenched his fists, as if making a decision, and said, If there is solid evidence proving that my brother was responsible for the attack on the Xiaolong Empire delegation, I will agree to any punishment the Xiaolong Empire proposes. Are you including handing over your brother for trial? Zhao Qin squinted as he looked at Prince McDoss. If all of this was done by my brother, I wouldn't protect him just because he's my sibling, a member of the Makhas Star Empire royal family, or the future heir to the empire, Prince McDoss said seriously. Zhao Qin didn't reply. Next, the negotiation began, with a table placed between the two sides. The negotiators from both sides started discussing how to handle the current situation. The main concern for the Makhas Star Empire representatives was to ensure peace between the two empires and prevent war. They also promised to investigate the matter thoroughly and give the Xiaolong Star Empire an explanation. Their primary request was for the Xiaolong Star Empire not to use force right now and to give them time to deal with the issue. The Xiaolong Star Empire's position was clear. They could harm the Makhas Star Empire, but they would still send a fleet, which would be a whole fleet group with nearly 500,000 starships. They also said they would arrest anyone related to this incident within the Makhas Star Empire. The agreement made with the fourth prince was now invalid. The Xiaolong Star Empire had unlimited authority to govern this matter. This meant that if the incident involved their emperor, they even had the right to arrest him directly. The Makhas Star Empire naturally wouldn't agree easily to such a tough demand. Both sides argued back and forth, hoping to get the conditions they wanted. After about 10 minutes of this back and forth, Zhao Qin stood up impatiently and said coldly, "Since you have no sincerity in negotiations, there's no need to continue talking here." Then he turned around. "Wait a moment." The seventh Prince Midos suddenly called out to Zhao Qin. The seventh Prince Midos looked at Zhao Qin's back and said, "Emperor Xiaolong, can't you give us a little more time?" "Time?" Zhao Qin smiled coldly. "I've already given you time. But you haven't given me the answers I want. Now, we will handle it ourselves." At this moment, Mados's expression turned cold. He said in a deep voice, "Haha, isn't your majesty being a bit too overbearing? Do you really think the Xiaolong Star Empire is the most powerful in the universe among many others?" The atmosphere inside the cabin started to feel tense. Zhao Qin turned around with interest, looking at the seventh Prince Midos. He smiled and said, "Overbearing? I don't usually like that word. But this time, when dealing with you Mahi Star Empire, I happen to be overbearing. As for whether our Xiaolong Star Empire is invincible, I can't guarantee that. But taking care of your Mahi Star Empire is definitely easy for us. If you don't believe it, you can try." Just then, Zhao Qin's handheld device started flashing red lights. It was an emergency signal. "Oh, the enemy starship suddenly moved," shouted a female guard who had been watching the situation outside. At the same time, Zhao Qin's wrist device projected a light shadow. It was the vice commander of the Xiaolong Guard fleet, Xiong Xiangxiang. "Your Majesty, retreat quickly. This is a trap. We've detected a large number of enemy star fleets approaching us." While Xiong Xiangxiang was reporting, the seventh Prince Midos suddenly charged toward Zhao Qin. Originally, between the two star shuttles, there should have been an energy barrier separating them. But for some reason, Prince Midos did not react at all when his body hit the energy barrier. Prince Midos was very fast. He swung his fist at Zhao Qin, and two steel blades appeared on his fist. The bodyguard leopard girl beside Zhao Qin saw this, and quickly activated her personal star shield to protect Zhao Qin. But an even more surprising scene happened. The steel blades on Prince Mados's arm and body ignored the star shield and continued to attack the bodyguard leopard girl in front of Zhao Qin. It looked like the blades were about to pierce her throat. But in the next second, a hand moved so fast it was almost impossible to see and grab the fist with the steel blades. Then, a military boot suddenly stomped down from above Prince Mados's head, smashing his head into the floor, causing the floor to dent. Almost no one saw clearly how the Dragon Emperor moved. At the same time, the 9 people who followed Prince Midos formed a fan-shaped group around Zhao Qin, each using their own skills to attack him. Some shot blades from their arms, some grew larger, like half-beasts, and others had their bodies covered with scales. Right now, these 9 people only had one goal: to defeat the Dragon Emperor Zhao Qin. But in the next moment, each of these 9 figures was thrown backward, crashing heavily into the cabin. In the blink of an eye, the leopard girl bodyguard saw the fight end. She was shocked but relieved, knowing her emperor's ability. He was the one who had torn apart a mech before. Dealing with these attackers was no problem at all. Everyone, get them under control. The leopard girl bodyguard ordered immediately. The nearby guards quickly moved to capture all of them. Zhao Chun crouched down and grabbed the head of the 7th Prince Midos, which he had stepped on and pressed into the ground. The entire face of the 7th Prince Midos was now unrecognizable, blood and flesh all over. Zhao Chun stared at the face in front of him. It seemed like he had discovered something. He pressed his finger on the temple of the 7th Prince Midos. Suddenly, the face in front of him blurred for a moment, and then another bloody, flesh-covered face appeared before Zhao Chun. Although it was also bloody and flesh-covered, the facial outline showed some differences from the previous face of the 7th Prince Midos. "You're not the 7th Prince Midos. Who are you?" Zhao Chun asked with a frown. The imposter 7th Prince Midos looked at Zhao Chun with a mocking expression in his eyes. At this moment, his body started to twitch, but he still struggled to speak. "This time, I didn't kill you, but our great fleet will still arrive in your universe and make you and everything you have submit before us. Only we are the true strong ones." Then, the fake 7th Prince Midos deflated like a punctured balloon. Zhao Chun released his grip. Within a few seconds, this Midos turned into a piece of skin on the ground. The other 9 people were in the same condition. "What is this?" The bodyguard leopard girl looked at the scene in surprise. It should be some kind of modified human. Their bodies have been enhanced with assassin-type modifications and have very advanced human mimicry technology, allowing them to imitate many external appearances. When we scanned them earlier, we checked their information, but we didn't expect to fail in identifying them. That means this technology is at least level T6 or higher. This shouldn't be technology typical of the Maikaz interstellar empire. And judging by their facial structures, they probably aren't Maikaz people. Zhao Chun analyzed the situation carefully. The Royal Guard leopard girl looked surprised and said, "So, behind the Maikaz interstellar empire incident, there are actually other alien civilizations? But among the known cosmic civilizations, who would dare oppose our Xiaolong interstellar empire at this time? And who would dare to plot an assassination against you?" When she said this, her eyes flashed with a fierce look. Daring to assassinate the Xiaolong Emperor is no longer comparable to the previous attack by the Maikaz interstellar empire. This is an act of declaring war on the Xiaolong interstellar empire. In the empire, the safety of the Xiaolong Emperor's life is the highest priority. I am also curious about who is truly behind this. Zhao Chun stood up and turned back to his shuttle, prepared to return home. The 2 docking shuttles quickly separated. At this moment, the Maikaz Empire's starships, which had been facing away from them, suddenly turned around. All their cannons began to charge, ready to fire at any moment. Additionally, in the outer space area, many glowing rings could be seen. These are the engine auras of the starships. Lock onto that shuttle. Open fire. Fire now. Target that shuttle and destroy it at all costs. The captains of the Maikaz Empire's starships were all giving the same orders. Because just moments ago, they received these commands almost simultaneously. All starships immediately went into battle mode, locking onto the starship and preparing to destroy it at any cost. Although the starship captains were confused, wasn't this supposed to be a negotiation? They all knew that the starship carried the Xiaolong Emperor. If they destroyed it, it would be a clear declaration of war against the Xiaolong Empire, leaving no room for peace. Either they or the empire would fall. They are just subordinates. Their job is to carry out the orders given from above. Naturally, they can only honestly pass on the commands. Adjusting the ship's direction and aiming the cannons take time. However, the interstellar drone groups and fighter fleets do not need such complicated steps. All the interstellar fighters and drones on board took off at this moment, heading toward the shuttle of the Star Empire of the Falcon Dragon on the opposite side. The first to act were the fleet of the Star Empire of the Maikaz, who received the orders first. The Falcon Dragon Interstellar Army fleet couldn't immediately position itself for battle, but the defensive interstellar missiles on the escort ships were launched quickly. They protected the shuttle's safe return. On the battlefield, the swarm of Maikaz interstellar drones and fighters was shot down one by these defensive missiles, turning into explosions. Some drones and fighters rushed into the range of enemy fire, and before being destroyed, They quickly launched all the weapons they carried. At the same time, some defensive missiles created energy clouds along the attack paths, which could intercept and block the incoming attacks. Thanks to this, the shuttle carrying the Falcon Dragon Emperor successfully returned to the Dragon King flagship. Zhao Chen immediately returned to the bridge. The officers and crew on the bridge all looked at the Falcon Dragon Emperor. In their eyes, there was a hint of anger. They had witnessed their emperor's shuttle being threatened right in front of them. This was unacceptable. It felt like a slap in the face and an insult to them. We have at least 100,000 interstellar warships detected around, responsible for guarding the area. These interstellar warships disguise their fleet emblems, and it is unknown which interstellar civilization or force they belong to. Moreover, the designs of these warships do not appear in any database, suggesting they may not be from any known universe civilization. A video window popped up, and Vice Fleet Commander Xiang reported, "It seems they are coming for me." Zhao Chen sat on his throne, a slight smile on his face. He was not worried at all about being surrounded by enemies. Zhao Chen placed his finger on his chin and calmly asked, "How long before these warships enter our attack range?" "Based on our initial assessment of their level and ship types, we should be within combat range in about 10 minutes, replied Commander Xiang. Zhao Chen teased, "It looks like we are in a dangerous situation. I wonder if the other side is willing to give us a chance to surrender with a white flag. Send them a video communication request." Vice Commander Xiang understood what Zhao Chen meant. He wasn't asking for surrender, but trying to learn more about the enemy. However, he immediately delivered bad news. The other side refused the communication request. Hearing this, Zhao Chen paused and then chuckled. He said with a smile, "I didn't expect these guys to be so determined to kill me. It seems they are not friendly." Then, his expression turned serious, and his eyes lost their previous smile. His voice became very cold as he said, "Since the enemy has appeared, it's our turn now. Proceed with the next step of the plan. Remember to leave some alive. I'm curious to know who has such a strong desire to kill me. Besides the devouring civilization, I don't think I have many enemies still alive." Zhao Chen's eyes carried a fierce look. His rule is that he will not allow his enemies to live. The reason for devouring civilizations is that, for the Star Dragon Interstellar Empire, there is still no opportunity to deal with the devouring civilization. But this is already on Zhao Chen's schedule. For example, the agreed-upon duel of vows. "Yes," said Deputy Commander Xiang. Then she ordered her subordinates to send out secret messages through several channels. Some stealth reconnaissance ships received the messages and continued to pass on the intelligence. Eventually, this information would reach the right people. Time slowly passed. Around them, 100,000 unknown starships and 3,000 starships from the Mahaz Empire formed a circle around the Imperial Guard fleet. They kept getting closer to the Imperial Guard fleet. The two fleets were about to engage in battle. All starships of the unknown fleet have been scanned. Although they only have about 100,000 starships, all of them are T4 level or higher, and they are very elite. Among these 100,000 starships, there are 100,000 T4 ships, 10,000 T5 ships, and exactly 1,000 T6 ships, said Deputy Commander Xiang seriously. 1,000 T6 starships? Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes. Having 1,000 T6 starships at once is very rare in known civilizations. Even the Holy Spirit Empire does not have this strength. Moreover, one of the starships has a shape we suspect is close to T7 level. But whether its combat power has reached T7 level still needs to be tested in battle. If this starship truly is close to T7, then, among the enemy's more than 100,000 interstellar warships, nearly 100 are of the quasi-T7 class. This news is even more shocking. None of these belong to any known civilization in the universe, Zhao Chen said firmly. If anyone in the known universe is hiding strength, that is undeniable. However, being able to hide the fact that they have 1,000 T6 class ships and nearly 100 quasi-T7 ships suggests only one possibility. This civilization comes from another unknown universe. But according to Zhao Chen's and the Holy Spirit Empire's information, they have explored for a long time, yet the number of known universes hasn't changed much. Since when did exploration beyond known universes become impossible to find new ones. However, all scientists deny the idea that no other universes exist. Therefore, some scholars proposed a theory called the multiverse theory. This theory is based on existing scientific ideas. Scientists believe that in almost all matter and life, there is a gathering effect. Things tend to cluster together. For example, some planets gather to form a galaxy. Galaxies gather to form galaxy groups, or star regions. Beyond these gathering areas, there are more empty regions. Applying this idea to the universe, it suggests that universes might also form a multiverse community. The distances between these multiverses would be very large, making it difficult for them to find each other. Because current exploration tools can only explore limited areas, it is hard to discover other universes. Unless they can truly reach T7 technological level, they probably cannot pass this hurdle. Currently, the Qianlong Interstellar Empire does not have that strength. Compared to other cosmic communities, if their interstellar civilization is in the same universe as the Qianlong Empire, they are either already at T7 level or higher. If that were the case, then the appearance of only near T7 and T6 level starships, along with many T4 level ships, would not make sense. The only other possibility is that this interstellar civilization universe has found a way, through some clever means, to access the universe of the Qianlong Empire. I am becoming more interested in the cosmic forces behind this fleet, Zhao Chun said with a smile, like a hunter spotting a new prey in his forest. Report: the enemy starships will enter our firing range in 30 seconds. All their starships are ready for battle. Their ship weapons have all activated targeting systems and are locked onto us. His subordinate reported. Xiong, you are in charge of commanding the battle. The Dragon Emperor starship will support you. Zhao Chen handed over command to Xiong, the fleet's deputy commander. Understood. Xiong quickly took on her role, issuing various battle orders to the Qianlong Guard fleet. All star defense ships switch to defense mode and intercept all enemy attacks. Other combat starships target and fire on enemy starships within firing range. Star missile ships and heavy star cannons stand by. Commands were passed down one after another. A huge light shield rose around the Qianlong Guard fleet, enclosing all 3,000 ships in a defensive formation. Meanwhile, some long-range attacking starships moved to the front line. For example, the T6 Seraph Archangel-class interstellar long-range hunter ship. Currently, these T6 Seraph Archangel-class ships are targeting enemy starships that seem to be close to T7 level. Zhao Chun is also watching the battle footage of these starships, which appear to be near T7, as well as other T6 level ships. Record all combat data of the enemy starships. This will be useful for us in the future, Zhao Chun instructed. The data collection department of the Dragon Emperor Starship Command is now active. Soon, the mystery surrounding these enemy starships begins to unfold as they attack, revealing their true nature one by one. Ship M601, suspected to be a T6 class starship, possibly a starship destroyer with medium to long-range energy weapons. Ship M604, suspected to be a T6 class starship battleship, likely a long-range starfire battleship with very long range, using both physical and energy shells, with limited weapon slots, slow firing rate, but extremely long attack distance. Ship M503, suspected to be a T5 class starship heavy cannon ship, using energy shells, with moderate attack power, attack density, and firing frequency. Zhao Chen observes these data being recorded one after another. He focuses on the central data panel. Ship M701, suspected to be a near T7 starship, with a hull shape resembling a starship destroyer and cruiser, moderate to high speed, maximum speed currently unknown. Equipped with many medium-range rapid-fire main guns. The enemy starship's attack power hits the star shields surrounding the Imperial Guard fleet, creating a dazzling rain-like pattern. Fortunately, support comes from the T6 White Jade Black Tortoise Heavy Starship Strategic Escort and the T5 Mountain King Heavy Starship Integrated Strategic Escort, both of the Falcon Dragon series. For now, the enemy's attacks cannot do any significant damage to the Falcon Dragon escort fleet. The enemy's firepower is gradually increasing. Based on the current firepower level, Our defensive shield can hold off the enemy's attack for about 15 minutes. The adjutant reported this to Zhao Chen beside him. That doesn't seem like a very long time. But it's important to know that this isn't because the Xiaolong Guard fleet lacks strength. It's because the enemy has truly come prepared this time. This unknown interstellar civilization has brought out 100 nearly T7 class starships. Currently, the Xiaolong Interstellar Empire doesn't have that many nearly T7 class starships. Moreover, the enemy has over 100,000 starships, while Zhao Chen's side only has 3,000. In the face of a 30-fold difference in starship numbers, holding out for 15 minutes is quite impressive. 15 minutes is enough, Zhao Chun said with a shrug. Report. We've received information about our fleet. The adjutant excitedly activated the interstellar radar map and shouted. On the radar, several glowing dots appeared one after another. Messages also started coming in. Report. Commander Chu Xian of the Xiaolong Second Fleet has been ordered to lead the Second Flagship Corps and will enter battle position within 3 minutes, came the voice of Marshal Chu Xian. Report. Commander Leona of the Xiaolong Fifth Fleet has been ordered to lead the 5th Flagship Corps and is about to arrive at the battlefield. Report. Commander Bai Shui of the Hell Angel Ace Fleet has led the Flagship Fleet into battle. Report. Commander Charlotte of the Reverse Scale Ace Fleet has led the Flagship Fleet into battle and will take command of the battlefield. At this moment, several support fleets from the Xiaolong Legion appeared around the battlefield after receiving the messages. Zhao Chun was well prepared for this negotiation. This is his countermeasure. You all need to consider whether you have the strength to back it up. At this moment, Marshal Charlotte's holographic image appeared in front of Zhao Chun. Your Majesty, all the fleet units are in position and ready to launch the attack at any moment, Marshal Charlotte said. At this moment, Zhao Chun saw a display of the current scale of all the Dragon Eagle Legion fleets present here. The second fleet group of the Dragon Eagle Legion has 50,000 starships. The fifth fleet group of the Fierce Dragon Legion also has 50,000 starships. The Hell Angel Flagship Fleet has 5,000 starships, and the Reverse Scale Flagship Fleet also has 5,000 starships. In total, there are about 110,000 starships here. The number of starships on both sides is quite balanced. Some might wonder why the Dragon Eagle Star Empire isn't sending more starships. One reason is that this is an emergency deployment, so most of the fleets can't be ready for battle so quickly. Also, since this is a battle across different universes, sending more fleets would require more resources. These are important considerations for the upper management of the Dragon Eagle Star Empire. After all, there are vows of duels in the future, so they can't recklessly invest all resources into this fight. It's best to use the least resources to end the battle quickly. This time, only the elite fleets were mobilized, aiming to finish the enemy with the least time, resources, and troops. Charlotte, the enemy is likely a non-stellar civilization force, possibly a near T7 level star civilization. Although they only have about 100,000 starships, among them are roughly 100 suspected near T7 starships and nearly 1,000 T6 starships. Do you think we need to send additional reinforcements? Zhao Chun asked seriously. Regarding this battle, Zhao Chun and Charlotte had prepared multiple plans, more than 10 different battle strategies. Considering that if the enemy fleet is too large or powerful, additional waves of reinforcements can be sent later, including a second or even a third group of fleets to support. I understand the current battlefield situation, said Marshal Charlotte with a slight smile. I believe that with the starships we have brought, we can handle the enemy in front of us. We do have starships close to Tier 7. Yes, the Shadow Dragon Interstellar Empire does have starships near Tier 7. Both Zhao Chun and Charlotte believe their Tier 7 starships are far superior to those of the enemy. This confidence is not blind arrogance, but based on battle data from the enemy's Tier 7 starships. Remember to leave some alive. I want to know exactly who we are dealing with, Zhao Chun said with narrowed eyes. Of course. I also want to know who dares to attack our Shadow Dragon Emperor, Marshal Charlotte replied with a fierce look in her eyes, showing a hint of deadly intent. Then, Marshal Charlotte began planning a new battle strategy. The elite flagship fleet of the Shadow Dragon Legion launched its attack. The enemy commander noticed this and decided to fight on two fronts. One side continued to pressure the Dragon Emperor's fleet, while the other launched an attack on the elite flagship fleet of the Shadow Dragon. Once the battle started, the situation on both sides was completely different. The enemy fleet was relentlessly attacking, while the Imperial Guard fleet was mainly defending. At first, the enemy fleet tried to attack actively, but they quickly realized something was wrong. They had no chance. The Shadow Dragon's elite flagship fleet was like a fierce tiger descending from the mountain, showing strength far beyond normal. It was as if they had angered a hidden beast, unleashing incredible fighting power. First, the initial wave was a powerful, all-out attack by the interstellar missile ships. Countless interstellar missiles rained down like a storm. Although the enemy fleet was composed of elite ships with high interception efficiency, there were simply too many missiles. Over 3,000 interstellar missile ships, including the T6 class Holy Blood Hell Angel heavy strategic missile ships. Meanwhile, the other Dragon starships worked in perfect coordination. While the missile ships launched their firepower coverage, these ships simultaneously charged forward. By the time the missile attack ended, the Dragon starships had already closed in very close. Both sides' starships could reach each other's ships with their weapons, making it a true close-quarters battle. At the front was the nearly T7 class Golden Sacred Beetle heavy starship, leading the charge. This ship acted like a shield for the fleet, giving a strong sense of protection. In addition, the nearly T7 Golden Sacred Beetle was very powerful. It used its main gun, secondary guns, and other weapons to attack the enemy's starships. At this moment, these nearly T7 Golden Sacred Beetle ships roared like giant beasts from the depths. This terrifying assault caused the enemy starships to suffer greatly. T4 class ships were almost instantly destroyed. Only the T5 and higher-level starships managed to hold on. Meanwhile, the enemy's nearly T7 class starships also appeared. They seemed to realize that these were also nearly T7 ships, so they could only use their own T7 ships to fight back. There was a big difference in the number of T7 class starships between the two sides. The Xianglong Interstellar Empire has only 30 nearly T7 Golden Sacred Beetle class heavy interstellar dreadnoughts. Despite this, these 30 nearly T7 Golden Sacred Beetle class heavy interstellar dreadnoughts are still confident when facing at least 60 nearly T7 level interstellar warships. During battles with these T7 level ships, they gather more combat data on the enemy ships. It is clear that, aside from speed, these enemy T7 level ships do not have any performance stats that surpass those of the Golden Sacred Beetle class heavy interstellar dreadnought. This means that, in one-on-one fights, enemy T7 ships are no match for the Golden Sacred Beetle class dreadnought. Because these T7 level ships have very strong firepower, other interstellar ships find it hard to pose a big threat to them. Over time, these T7 ships form a small battle zone of their own, and other ships tend to avoid this area. The battlefields of T7 level ships are very evenly matched, as both sides have advanced technology, so it's hard to determine a winner quickly. In other areas, the fighting is very one-sided. The Xianglong Interstellar Fleet rushes forward in a wild charge, looking very fierce, but they still keep good battle formations while attacking. The lead is taken by the flagship fleet of the reverse-scale Ace Fleet Group, which is made up entirely of interstellar battleships. Leading the charge are T6 Zijin Silver Dragon class heavy interstellar battleships, followed by T5 Sacred Redeemer class heavy interstellar armored battleships, and T4 Blue Eyes White Dragon class heavy interstellar armored battleships. These battleships form the front line of the attack. They act like spears, piercing through the enemy fleet's line. There is almost no resistance. Besides the interstellar battleship, there are also many fleets of fighter ships and drone groups among these starships. The enemy fleet also has carrier starships, which have sent their own fighter ships and drone groups. However, the strength of their space combat forces is completely different. It's like comparing two different levels. At the moment of contact, the fighter ships and drone groups of the Xianglong Interstellar Legion fleet acted like a swarm of locusts, clearing out all of the enemy's space combat forces. As a result, the Xianglong Legion gained control of the airspace, giving them a big advantage on the battlefield. Combined with the excellent performance of other starships on their side, This led to the Xiongling fleet taking full control of the situation. Mysterious Interstellar Civilization Legion Fleet, Flagship Bridge Report. According to the system calculations, our current chance of victory is less than 17%. This Xiongling Interstellar Empire's battleships are stronger than we previously estimated, a subordinate reported while sitting at the command chair. The commander was silent for a moment before speaking. Record all battle reports and data here. If we are defeated, transmit this information before losing. Also, activate the self-destruct protocols on all star ships and soldiers. Once defeated, all ships and soldiers will destroy themselves. And record what I am saying. Sir, are we making such a quick decision? Do we still have a chance to escape? The subordinate asked. The commander shook his head and said, we have no chance to escape. They came prepared, aiming directly at us. This is not our universe, and we have nowhere to hide. Plus, we have no supplies. If they want to hunt us down, we have no chance to survive. Unless the enemy wants to capture us alive. Our current mission is to find a way to directly destroy the Galactic Alliance here. If possible, we aim to kill the highest commander of the Star Dragon Empire in one strike, ensuring they cannot win the upcoming Duel of Vows. Now, our plan has failed. Therefore, we must do our best to gather more intelligence for the Empire. At the same time, we should try to keep our information from leaking to the enemy. Hearing the commander's firm words, the subordinates silently nodded and asked, do you have any last words? The commander looked out the window of the spaceship at the ongoing battle. He watched the fierce fighting of the Star Dragon ships and the many ships being destroyed and turning into fireballs. Great Diabolos, God of Destruction. We are very sorry that we could not complete our original mission. By the time you see these words, our fleet should have all been destroyed. On your future path of conquest, a strong opponent has appeared. That is the Star Dragon Empire. I suggest raising their threat level from S to SSS. If there is any chance, spare no effort to eliminate the Star Dragon Empire. They have very advanced starship technology. Their ships are stronger in battle than ours. They also have very powerful T7 level starships. 11,000 starships were gradually destroyed in battle. 100,000, 80,000, 60,000, 40,000. And the 3,000 starships from the Mahaz Empire have long been completely destroyed. In wars between advanced civilizations, fleets like the Mahaz Empires have no hope. And on the battlefield of those T7 level starships. At this moment, it is a one-sided scene of slaughter and suppression. Although the number of T7 starships, specifically the Golden Sacred Beetle-class heavy interstellar dreadnoughts, is fewer compared to other fleets, these ships are currently hunting down enemy starships. These Golden Sacred Beetle-class ships are not fighting alone. They are deploying their 3,000 interceptors and all their drone swarms. As a result, the battle is dominated by the Golden Sacred Beetle-class ships, with a clear advantage in slaughter. When one T7 starship is destroyed, it triggers a chain reaction, like a falling domino, speeding up the destruction. On the other hand, the Dragonstar Legion fleet has very few fallen starships. Some ships with depleted shields or serious damage retreat to the back lines, ensuring their safety while providing some fire support. On the bridge of the Dragon Emperor starship, Zhao Chun holds a glass of red wine, looking down at the battlefield like a king. The battlefield has become a slaughterhouse where the Dragonstar Legion unleashes its fury on the enemy. Any enemy starship resisting stubbornly will be completely destroyed. Who could they be? Zhao Chun murmured to himself. He is very curious about the forces behind this, very curious. Miha's Interstellar Empire, everyone knows about the negotiations between the Seventh Prince and the Dragonstar Empire's Dragon Emperor. Since they are in another universe, or even a shattered universe, if the Dragonstar Empire hadn't prepared in advance, news would be hard to send quickly. So, even though the battle over there is nearing its end, there is still no news here. At the same time, everyone was anxiously waiting and curious about what the final outcome would be. The first space city outside the Mahaz Star Empire right now, many high-ranking officials of the Mahaz Star Empire were gathered here. However, quietly, some changes were happening within this space city. Urgent reassignment. You can go rest now. A team of patrol soldiers approached, showing an electronic order to the soldiers guarding this checkpoint. Reassignment? Our shift still has 6 hours left. The squad leader, who was on duty here, looked confused at the electronic order. The order included today's instructions and was signed by the 7th Prince. This confirmed that the order was legitimate. This is an order, the patrol soldier said seriously. All members of Space City Squad 10871 prepared to switch posts and finish their handover. Such incidents were happening in most parts of the Space City, even at some military bases. These sudden and coordinated reassignments quickly drew the attention of some people. On a luxurious artificial lawn inside the Space City, high-ranking officials of the Mayha's Star Empire gathered, especially those royal family members who had not fled the Empire. Almost over 90% of them were here. At this moment, a person dressed as a military officer hurried over to the 4th Prince. He whispered 2 words into the 4th Prince's ear. The 4th Prince's face suddenly changed. He looked around, then after a moment of silence, he stood up to leave. But then, a voice called out, "4th brother, where are you headed?" When people heard this voice, they first showed confused expressions, then immediately looked toward the direction of the voice. Because this voice was unmistakably the 7th Prince, Midas. But now, wasn't the 7th Prince Midas supposed to be negotiating with the Dragon Star Empire's Dragon Emperor? All eyes turned to a group of guards escorting a person into the room. That person was indeed Prince Midas, the 7th Prince. The 4th Prince looked at the 7th Prince with a complicated expression and said, "Old 7, do you have something to explain to us?" "Explain? Why would I need to explain anything?" The 7th Prince replied with a light laugh. "You, using your temporary command authority, replaced the defense forces of the Space City with your trusted followers. You also made similar arrangements in other important star systems and military bases. Additionally, you secretly implemented the Empire's control measures. Old 7, what are you really trying to do?" The 4th Prince stared directly at the 7th Prince. Upon hearing this, the people around sensed something was wrong. These actions clearly weren't normal. It was as if a royal family member was planning a rebellion. "4th, you're very clever. My second brother used to praise you for that. He said if you didn't have the desire to fight for the throne, he wouldn't have kept you this long," the 7th Prince said with a teasing tone. "So, you're the one trying to take the throne. All of this is your doing. You framed the second brother," the 4th Prince angrily accused. The 7th Prince shrugged, showing some disdain, and said, "You're only half right. I don't care about the throne. If I really wanted to fight for it, my brother wouldn't have been able to compete with me from the start." The 4th Prince looked at the 7th Prince in surprise, confused and angry, and asked, "Then what are you doing? Do you realize the consequences of your actions? Our Mahi Star Empire's relationship with the Shadow Dragon Star Empire has already cooled to freezing. If we become enemies with the Shadow Dragon Star Empire, do you think we can stand against them? What you're doing will only push our country into ruin. You will become a criminal in our nation." At this moment, the 7th Prince's eyes were filled with a kind of madness. He laughed loudly and said, "You are afraid of the Xionglong Star Empire's strength, but I am not. Among many civilizations in the universe, there are not only the Xionglong and the Star Empire, but also much stronger beings." Hearing what the 7th Prince said, the 4th Prince suddenly realized something. He looked at the 7th Prince and asked, "Have you found other strong allies?" The 7th Prince didn't speak, only offering a faint smile. The 4th Prince looked seriously at the 7th Prince and asked, "You just said you're doing all this not for the throne, so what are you really aiming for?" At that moment, the 7th Prince's gaze became very intense as he looked at the 4th Prince. The 4th Prince frowned slightly, feeling confused about the 7th Prince's strange look. Normally, their relationship wasn't very close, but they were at least familiar brothers on the surface, which is common in royal families. So, the 4th Prince wondered why the 7th Prince was staring at him with such a strange expression. But soon he understood why. Because, from the beginning to the end, the intense gaze wasn't on him but on someone beside him. At this moment, the usually calm and reserved 3rd Princess suddenly changed her demeanor. She lifted her head high and walked forward confidently. "Third sister." The 5th Princess saw her sister, the 3rd Princess, standing ahead, and her aura suddenly felt very unfamiliar. She looked at her sister's back in shock. It was as if she was looking at someone she didn't recognize at all. Soon, others noticed the strange behavior of the 3rd Princess and looked at her with surprise. The quick-witted fourth prince saw not only passion in the emperor's gaze, but also a special feeling. Unknowingly, the third princess had already stood in front of the seventh prince. The seventh prince placed his hand on his chest and performed a knight's salute to the empire. Then, with a very gentle yet firm voice, he said, "From now on, this empire will belong to you. All of this is my gift to you. I promised you that I would fight for everything you wanted. Now look at your empire, my queen." The people around initially looked confused, but gradually they became shocked. They might not be very clever, but they could see that there was some special connection between the third princess and the seventh prince. Although such feelings are usually not allowed, stories among the people often talk about similar relationships. In reality, other interstellar empires have also experienced such cases. No one expected this to happen right in front of them, to their own royal family. The third princess ignored the surprised looks of the others. She slowly placed her hand on the seventh prince's hand, then turned to face everyone. At that moment, her gaze was no longer gentle and kind, but carried the aura of someone in power at the top. "I declare that from now on, no one here is allowed to leave. I do not want to stain my inheritance with too much blood," the third princess said coldly. Everyone felt that the person they once knew so well was now so unfamiliar. Although they were only a few meters apart, it felt like they were separated by a vast galaxy. While others remained silent, the fourth prince looked grim. He said to the third princess, "Sister, you know our empire's tradition. Royalty is passed down to males, not females. Even if you sit on the throne now with old Seven's help, do you think the noble families will accept you? What you're doing will only bring disaster to the empire. Sister, it's not too late to stop now." As soon as the fourth prince finished speaking, a laser shot directly at his feet, leaving a black scorch mark on the ground. The third princess held a laser gun in her hand and looked coldly as she said, "Fourth brother, I still consider you as such because you used to take care of me. But I hope you understand the situation. Otherwise, next time, my gun won't aim at the ground but at your head." Seeing this scene, everyone present, even if they had other thoughts, dared not speak. After all, even the fourth prince was threatened by the yellow lady. As members of the royal family, they didn't dare say a word. The fourth prince looked a little helpless. His tone became calm as he looked at the very different third princess and slowly asked, "Are you really doing all this just for the throne?" The third princess's eyes flashed with anger. She gritted her teeth and said, "I just can't accept it. Why can't women become emperors? Why is our status lower than yours? In your eyes, you only see the excellence of our eldest brother, the talent of the second brother, and your own eloquence, fourth brother. But do you remember who was the top student when we were in school? No matter the subject, I was always first. Every time we showed our grades to the emperor, he only saw you and didn't see me. Why is this unfair?" Her voice started to tremble as she spoke, showing how truly angry she was. "Fifth brother, if you want to show your talents, why don't you talk to us or to the emperor? Even if the emperor won't give you the throne, he might give you a chance to show your talents." The fourth prince listened to his half-sister's words with some sympathy. He knew that in the Mayha's interstellar empire, this was the reality. Although it is now the age of space, among the common people, things might be okay, but among the high-ranking nobles, especially the royal family, old traditions still hold strong. When I hear that word, the third princess's expression becomes even more angry. She glares and says, "How do you know I haven't spoken about this before? I once held a naive hope about this, but what happened? The result was that the person who loved me most paid a heavy price because of my naive hope. My mother passed away sadly, and I didn't even get to see her one last time before she died. Your mother. Could it be that when father punished her, it was because of?" The fourth prince seems to have guessed something and looks at the third princess with disbelief. The third princess gives a sad smile and shakes her head, saying, "I was still young then, but I didn't have the courage to tell father directly about this. So I talked to my mother about it, share my thoughts. I didn't ask for much at that time. I just wanted a chance to show my abilities. I didn't seek the throne, I just wanted an opportunity. An opportunity for father and mother to see how talented I am. I was confidently talking to my mother, not knowing that my foolish words at that time pushed her onto an irreversible path. Compared to other concubines, my mother was just a fallen noblewoman, with no power or influence. But she understood well the status of women in the royal family of the Makas Star Empire. Yet she loved me deeply and hoped I could have a chance to realize my dreams. She didn't want to see me unhappy, so she went to talk to my father herself, hoping to get him to have more expectations for me and give me a chance to succeed. My mother even showed all my achievements, believing that with such an excellent daughter, that man would be willing to give me some opportunities. After all, I am his daughter. But my mother was too naive. I am his daughter, yes, but he has many daughters. If I wasn't the first, he probably wouldn't even remember I exist. He was a person deeply bound by traditional ideas. He refused to admit that his son was inferior to me, his daughter. So, he immediately punished my mother for daring to speak to me. The reason for the punishment obviously wasn't because of me. If it had been, others would say he was a petty emperor. Then he came up with a very silly excuse, claiming her family was trying to interfere in politics. In the end, he demoted her back to her family and forbade her from leaving her home planet. Likewise, I was not allowed to see her again. Haha, I didn't even get the chance to say goodbye to my mother. Since then, I lost all contact with her. 3 years later, she was living alone in her hometown galaxy. Because of her, her family was also affected, and the family members became cold toward her. This led to her passing away sadly. I only learned of her death a month after she died. I didn't even have the chance to see her one last time. Listening to the third princess tell these stories, the women of the royal family present looked sad. They were also women, so they understood these things well. But they all silently endured these hardships. Over time, they got used to it and subconsciously ignored these issues. However, deep inside, they once had qualities that set them apart from others. But because of the traditional culture of the Mahasian Interstellar Empire, they never had a chance to show their talents. From that time on, my father forbade me from learning anything new. Of course, outsiders thought I was just being punished because of my mother and was kept under house arrest in the palace. Since then, I began to hate that man. He always said women shouldn't hold high positions, right? Well, then I will stand at the highest position in the Mahasian Interstellar Empire. I want him to see it clearly. The daughter he once looked down on has now stepped on his noble sons and become the first empress of the Mahas Interstellar Empire. At this moment, the third princess appears somewhat wild, as if she has lost her mind. Behind her, the seventh prince looks at her with pity, silently holding her wrist as if encouraging her. Hearing the third princess's story, the fourth prince falls silent. He has witnessed that part of history, but he didn't know there was such a secret behind it. Even if he had known back then, it wouldn't have mattered. At that time, he was just a son of the emperor. His father didn't lack daughters or sons. Third sister, it's okay. I am here with you. If you want to be empress, I will support you unconditionally. I will always stand behind you as your supporter, the seventh prince says softly. It's hard to imagine a military commander speaking so gently. It's clear he has very special feelings for the third princess. Little sister, seventh brother, you both really disappoint me. Suddenly, a voice rings out. Everyone looks surprised at the sound. The speaker is none other than the second prince, who was supposed to be dead or captured by the Xiongling Interstellar Empire. Everyone turns to look in the direction of the voice. There stands a person dressed in ordinary noble clothes, but his aura is far from that of an ordinary noble. Looking closer at his slightly made-up face, it's truly the second prince. Seeing the second prince appear, the third princess and the seventh princess both show expressions of shock and disbelief. How can you be here? Weren't you supposed to have been killed by the Xiongling Interstellar Empire? The third princess asks in disbelief. The seventh prince's eyes were filled with fear as he said, Second brother. The second prince did not attack directly, but looked at the third princess with sympathy. Third sister, I know your situation. I see your talent. When we were young, I was also powerless in front of our father. But since I started to hold power, I have gradually helped you stand in the spotlight. Otherwise, do you think that just a few words from Old Seven in my ear would make me hand over all the star trade business within the empire to you? Or let you manage the external intergalactic trade? Old Seven is good at fighting, but when it comes to understanding people, he's not as good as I am. I know your talent, and I am willing to promote you. That's why I gave you that position and authority. But I didn't expect that what you want is more than just that. In the end, I was wrong about you. The expression on the third princess's face suddenly turned fierce. Next to her, The seventh prince, Midas, looked at his brother in disbelief. He said again, Why? Why are you still alive? I was told that our Star Empire's soldiers killed your second prince, right? Suddenly, another unexpected voice interrupted. A woman dressed in military uniform entered, carrying a fierce aura. She looked over the crowd. The nobles of the Maya's Star Empire, who were under her gaze, shivered. Her gaze made them feel as if they were being stared at by a fierce dragon, as if the dragon had opened its mouth, ready to swallow them whole, biting them into pieces. It was as if they had experienced death once. Marshal Medusa? The fourth prince recognized the woman in military uniform. She was Marshal Medusa, the commander of the Star Dragon Empire investigating the attack on the Maya's Star Empire. Marshal Medusa's gaze fell on the fourth prince, and she nodded slightly as a sign of greeting. Is this your trap? Princess Mina, the third princess, was not foolish and quickly understood the reason behind it. Her face turned very grim. If I hadn't lured the snake out, how would I know that you, third sister, were hiding such big plans? Colluding with outsiders to harm your brothers and doing such inappropriate things. This truly shows what a good brother and sister you are, the second prince said with narrowed eyes, especially when looking at his younger brother, his expression cold. Previously, in the Makasi Star Empire, the rumors about these two siblings were quite good. But now, they had become enemies. This was something no one expected. At this moment, the seventh prince, Midas, stood in front of Princess Mina, facing his older brother. Brother, since you are here, it seems our plan has failed. I haven't asked you for anything before, but this time, for the sake of our brotherhood, I ask you to let third sister go. I will handle everything myself and take all the responsibility. The second prince looked at his younger brother with a cold but emotionally hidden gaze. Marshal Medusa glanced from the side. As someone who had once been in a position of power herself, she could sense these emotional changes. The coldness was only surface-level emotion. It was necessary for his role as the crown prince of the Makasi Star Empire and future emperor. For someone trying to rebel, even if it was his own brother, his current status didn't allow him to show too much emotion. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a qualified emperor. But deep inside, he probably still had some feelings for his brother, hiding emotions like pain and anger. Old Seven, you're still so naive. Do you think you and she can survive after doing such things? The second prince said through clenched teeth. The surrounding royal nobles also whispered among themselves. Indeed, such a serious matter, if it spreads, will have a huge impact on the entire Maya's interstellar empire. Since that's the case, today, here, anyone who dares to touch her must first get through me. Prince Chi58 raised his left arm, directly activating a star shield to protect Princess Mina from the front. A light blade shot out from his right arm. It looked like he was ready to take the princess and fight to escape. The third princess stood silently, fully aware of her fate. Since the second prince and Marshal Shalom were here, it meant their previous plans had failed. The entire space city was probably now full of people loyal to the second prince. With just these two, escaping in this situation was almost impossible. So, their fate was already sealed. If you are willing to tell me who your organization behind you is, maybe I can let you live, Marshal Medusa suddenly spoke. At that moment, the atmosphere became very quiet. Everyone's eyes fixed on this marshal from the distant Xiaolong interstellar empire. The second prince looked hesitantly at Marshal Medusa. Marshal Medusa smiled gently and said, I am here representing the emperor of our Xiaolong interstellar empire. This matter involves our empire. These two even tried to harm our emperor. Handing them over to us for punishment is reasonable, isn't it? Although everyone was confused, they didn't dare say much. Because, although taking the prince and princess of the Xiaolong Empire might seem a bit overstepping, they understood the situation. However, this matter is truly the responsibility of the Maya's interstellar empire. To be honest, even if the Xiaolong interstellar empire were to take military action against the Maya's empire because of this, outsiders would see it as understandable. So, the second prince didn't say much and just watched silently. Are you really willing to let us go? The seventh prince looked at Marshal Medusa with some disbelief, noticing her snake-like eyes. Marshal Medusa smiled slightly and looked at the two of them. I'll be straightforward with you. Because of what you've done, you shouldn't expect to leave alive. Hearing this, The third princess showed a mocking expression, as if she had already seen through them. Marshal Medusa continued, "However, if you perform some major acts of bravery, we might find a planet for you. We could also place some explosive or poison on you. You would live under constant surveillance, not allowed to leave our designated area. Although you've lost your freedom, at least you're still alive. That's the greatest mercy I can give you." Upon hearing this, the seventh prince immediately looked happy. He turned to the third princess and said, "Third sister, agree with them. At least then, we can survive." The third princess remained expressionless, as if she had already lost her soul when this plan fell apart. The seventh prince didn't care about that anymore. He quickly looked at Marshal Medusa and said, "I agree. As long as you guarantee our safety, I will tell you everything you want to know." Marshal Medusa smiled slightly and raised her hand. Several Xiaolong female soldiers stepped out from behind her and approached the third princess and the seventh prince. "Drop your weapons," the Xiaolong soldiers ordered sternly, approaching them closely. The seventh prince looked at the distraught third princess with concern. He put down all his weapons and held her hand tightly. Then, the female soldiers of the Shadow Dragon Star Empire placed collars symbolizing loss of freedom around the necks of the seventh prince and the third princess. "From now on, these two will belong to our Shadow Dragon Star Empire. Your Highness, the second prince, I assume you have no objections?" Marshal Medusa looked calmly at the second prince. The second prince cleared his throat, glanced at everyone present as if on purpose, and with a helpless expression, said, "This incident is our Mayha's Star Empire's responsibility. Since your country requested it, and these two are criminals, I declare that from today, the royal titles of the third Princess Menena and the seventh Prince Midos are revoked. They are no longer part of the royal family. Whether they live or die has nothing to do with us, the Mayha's Star Empire." Marshal Medusa nodded with a smile and signaled to her subordinates. In front of everyone, these two princes of the Mayha's Star Empire were taken away. At this moment, the fourth prince approached the second prince and Marshal Medusa, bowing slightly to greet them. Then he curiously asked, "Second brother, what exactly is going on?" Hearing the fourth prince's question, the second prince looked at Marshal Medusa and then smiled slightly. "Marshal Medusa, there are some things we need to confirm. May we stay a little longer?" Marshal Medusa nodded in agreement. "Please, follow me," the second prince said, leading the way and giving the fourth prince a subtle look. The fourth prince understood immediately and began handling the situation here. First, after some threats, he warned everyone present that what happened here must not be shared outside. Then, he asked everyone to leave. He followed the second prince and Marshal Medusa as they departed. The three of them headed to a private courtyard. The fourth prince was the last to arrive. As soon as he entered, he immediately opened the security barrier. "Please sit down," the second prince respectfully said, pointing to the jade chairs arranged in the courtyard. Marshal Medusa didn't hesitate and sat down directly. The fourth prince eagerly sat nearby, waiting for his older brother to answer his many questions. "I still need my younger brother to help me handle some related matters. May I explain it to him first? Otherwise, I think he might misunderstand everything." The second prince asked Marshal Medusa for his opinion. Marshal Medusa nodded. The second prince snapped his fingers, and a floating robot appeared, offering some tea. At the same time, he looked at the fourth prince, who was watching him eagerly, like a hungry baby waiting to be fed. "All of this actually started when Marshal Medusa took the initiative to contact me." The second prince began with a big reveal. "Marshal Medusa contacted you?" The fourth prince was very surprised. The second prince nodded, recalling, "I was also quite surprised at the time. Marshal Medusa actually reached out to me directly. Come to think of it, didn't Marshal Medusa doubt me back then? You should know, the clues you all had pointed directly at me." The second prince then looked at Marshal Medusa, who was drinking tea. Marshal Medusa's snake-like eyes looked at the second prince and said calmly, "I've seen some of your records. You're not a particularly talented leader, but you're not a fool either. So I believe that someone who isn't a fool wouldn't do something so self-destructive. Naturally, I ruled you out as the main suspect. The reason I contacted you was because all the clues pointed to you, and I didn't have enough time to investigate each one carefully. Since that's the case, I might as well explore the center of this whirlpool directly. So, I secretly contacted you at that time." The second prince smiled and said, as expected of the Marshal of the Star Empire of the Howling Dragon. He paused and looked at the fourth prince before continuing. When Marshal Medusa contacted me, she told me some clues she had found about me during her investigation. I made it clear that I was not the culprit. I don't know if Marshal Medusa believed me at that time, but afterward, she convinced me, and we decided to lure the enemy out. Since someone was deliberately provoking the Howling Dragon Star Empire against me, they must have been targeting me. If that's the case, then the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I really want to know who is trying to push me into this dangerous situation and drag the Mayha's Star Empire into this huge whirlpool. So later, I deliberately pretended to have a conflict with Marshal Medusa, reluctantly allowing her to take Duke Jom away. Later, as we expected, the clues we uncovered still pointed to me. At that moment, Marshal Medusa and I discussed again. We believed that the person hiding in the dark must be very cautious, the kind who only shows themselves when the time is right. If we didn't truly clash, this person would never reveal themselves. This led to the next step, where Marshal Medusa and I each led fleets to negotiate, resulting in a conflict. The Howling Dragon Star Fleet forcibly kidnapped me, and at that moment, as expected, the real mastermind revealed their pawns. But I didn't expect that this hidden figure wasn't just after my throne. They were actually targeting the Howling Dragon Emperor himself. Thinking about all this, the second prince now feels a chill down his spine because this entire series of plans was aimed at him. A force capable of planning so many schemes must be a powerful interstellar organization. If they weren't still aiming at the Dragon Emperor, it would have been easy for them to overthrow us just by working with the third princess and the seventh prince. But later, we sent an interstellar battleship to investigate. Was there any sign of a fight at the place where you met? The fourth prince asked in surprise. The second prince shrugged and smiled slightly. Fourth brother, don't forget who I am. This is the Mayha's Interstellar Empire. Creating a fake battlefield with some fake battleships and prisoners is not difficult here. The hard part is making it look real and not being caught. I couldn't do it alone. Luckily, the Dragon Star Empire's stealth reconnaissance ships formed a complete blockade around the battlefield, keeping all external interstellar ships out. As for the images and messages that spread, a sly look appeared in the second prince's eyes. Those were all deliberately leaked by you. The fourth prince suddenly understood. The second prince continued, you saw what happened afterward. I didn't expect that the final reveal would be about the third sister and old seven. Mentioning this, a hint of sadness appeared in the fourth prince's eyes. He couldn't help but glance at Marshal Medusa beside him, opening his mouth to speak, but then hesitating and holding back. So, who was the behind-the-scenes organization that made all this happen? The fourth prince asked eagerly. The second prince shook his head. We don't know yet. We have to wait for the interrogation of those two individuals. Before that, Marshal Medusa and I also secretly investigated. But we didn't find much information about this organization or the interstellar civilization behind it. So, we can only hope that those two will tell us more. After saying this, he looked at Marshal Medusa. Marshal Medusa calmly said, regarding the interrogation information on this matter, I will pass on everything I can tell you when the time comes. Now, we can start discussing serious issues. The second prince sat up straight. We will handle cleaning up the followers of the third princess and the seventh prince's factions related to the attack. This is an internal matter of our country. However, anyone involved in the attack will be unconditionally handed over to the Shalom Star Empire. Hearing this request, the fourth prince felt a bit ashamed, but he thought there was no other way. First, the Shalom Star Empire is much stronger than them. If they really fought, there would be no need to sit down and negotiate. Second, this incident was caused by the Mayha's Star Empire, and it's only fair that they suffer some losses. Marshal Medusa nodded and then asked, anything else? The fourth prince looked surprised at his older brother. The second prince sighed and continued, this is our responsibility as the Mayha's Star Empire. We will provide the highest standard of compensation and condolences for the victims. The fourth prince had no objections, as he had already agreed to this before. Besides that, the Mayha's Star Empire royal family will hold a special memorial service to sincerely apologize for this attack. The entire process will be broadcast across the universe. The fourth prince was stunned. This request seemed a bit embarrassing for the Mayha's royal family, but it was within an acceptable range. Also, The conditions you previously mentioned, we have no objections to. We agree to all of them. My brother, the fourth prince, will be responsible for handling these matters, the second prince finished. The fourth prince was still a bit stunned. Why was this all handed over to him? What conditions did he even propose? He looked at his older brother and felt like he was being sold. Should you notify him first? Marshal Medusa pointed at the confused fourth prince. The second prince opened a document and placed it in front of the fourth prince. Fourth, because of this matter. Sigh. Among our royal family, only you can help me with this. You will be in charge of handling it. The fourth prince looked at the document in front of him. The title was simple. It was about the interstellar cooperation between the Mahas Interstellar Empire and the Xiaolong Interstellar Empire, including the terms. But as he read further, the fourth prince's face turned pale, because the terms were really quite shameful and humiliating for our country. If Marshal Medusa wasn't here right now, he would have questioned his second brother about why he agreed to these terms. And now, he was supposed to be responsible for this matter. This meant he would have to face the insults from the people of the Mahas Interstellar Empire. Why was the fourth prince so angry? Because these cooperation terms, on the surface, are just normal interstellar trade agreements, including joining the Cosmic Trade Alliance. But in the bilateral trade agreements with the Xiaolong Interstellar Empire, some numbers clearly show that the Mahas Empire would suffer losses. These are not normal trade figures. And if the people of the Mahas Empire found out they signed such an agreement, they would be publicly humiliated. The second prince clearly understood this problem, so he handed the matter over to his younger brother. Feeling the angry gaze from his fourth brother, the second prince looked away and gazed at the sky. The weather is really nice today. All right, we've discussed most of what needs to be said. The rest will be handled by our diplomatic team in professional negotiations. I need to go back and handle some official matters now, Marshal Medusa said as he stood up to leave. The second and fourth princes immediately stood up to see him off. Watching Marshal Medusa disappear from sight, the fourth prince could no longer hold back. He directly pressed his second brother against the wall in a wall slam. Explain to me properly what those trade cooperation agreements are all about. The second prince shrugged helplessly. What can I do? You also see how much trouble our third sister and old seven caused us this time. Do you think the negotiation with the Xiaolong Emperor in that broken universe was just about talking? It was a trap. If the Xiaolong Star Empire hadn't been prepared, what do you think would have happened? But it's not our fault, the fourth prince argued. The second prince sighed. Isn't it important whether it's our fault? Did this all start because of us, the Mahas Star Empire? Is our third sister and old seven part of our royal family? To outsiders, this is the responsibility of our Mahas Star Empire. If the Xiaolong Star Empire wanted to hold us accountable earlier, they could have declared war on us. I didn't want to sign these agreements either, but what could I do? Something big has happened, and clearly, some unknown interstellar force is watching us. If we are fighting with the Xiaolong Star Empire now, do you think our Mahas Star Empire can still survive? These agreements are somewhat shameful, but they have time limits. The longest is not more than 99 years. For the sake of our empire's legacy, enduring a little is understandable. But why aren't you personally responsible for these matters? The fourth prince glared at his second brother. The second prince replied helplessly, I wish I could take charge, but I am the future heir of the Mahas Star Empire. If I handle these things myself, it would shame our royal family and affect our future reputation. So, this matter has to be left to you. My good younger brother, your older brother doesn't want to make things difficult for you. But this is just how things are. Don't worry, I will definitely remember your contributions. Tell me, what do you want? The fourth prince looked at his innocent-looking older brother and said through clenched teeth, I'm starting to want your throne now. You want it? Then I'll give it to you. By the way, about your trusted aide, Duke Xiaomai, is he really? Yes, he is an inside spy placed close to me. Do you know who did it? No, he committed suicide before he was exposed. Later, I sent people to check the Xiaomai family, and finally found the real Duke Xiaomai dead in a basement. The real Duke Xiaomai? So, the one we've been with all this time is actually a fake. That you didn't realize that? This spy is a special kind of creature that can perfectly imitate and disguise as someone else. Even biological checks like blood, fingerprints, voice, and iris scans can be completely faked. So, I never expected he was a spy among my people. I suspect there might be more such spies in our Mayha's interstellar empire. I plan to conduct a thorough investigation across our empire. Yes, we must investigate carefully. Under our noses, they managed to conspire with Sister 3 and Old 7 to do such a big thing. If we don't catch them early, I won't be able to sleep peacefully. Medusa Marshall's flagship bridge. Interrogation room. Medusa Marshall looked through the transparent floor-to-ceiling window at the two people locked together. A shadow suddenly appeared beside Medusa Marshall. Your Majesty, Medusa Marshall saluted slightly, surprised to see the holographic projection before him. Why did you come personally? The Mayha's interstellar empire carries certain risks. I was ambushed at the meeting location. What could be more dangerous than that? Some people are so arrogant they want to step on me and do as they please. I need to find out who is really behind this, Zhao Chun said irritably. Before Medusa could say anything more, Zhao Chun asked directly, have you found out anything? Not yet. The person was just brought here. But Prince Mados is very protective of the third princess, Mina. We negotiated earlier. As long as we ensure their safety, Mados is willing to share all the information he knows, Medusa Marshall explained. Zhao Chun nodded in satisfaction. At this moment, Medusa's voice lowered, and her eyes showed a hint of menace. Your Majesty, although these two are being used by others, they did participate in the attack on our delegation. If they cooperate with the investigation, should we really let them live freely? Zhao Chun looked through the glass window at the special man and woman in front of him. He said calmly, I know many want to kill them, but if killing them can help us find the real culprit, I am willing. If we can't find the truth, then perhaps we can use them. Are you suggesting we use them, and then? Medusa's eyes gleamed with excitement. As someone who has been active in the Black Reef Star domain, she saw such untrustworthy behavior as nothing special. Zhao Chun thought for a moment and said, if I remember correctly, the lifespan of the Mayha's interstellar empire is about 200 years. These two are around 60. Living another 140 years is too long. I know there's a planet where the air is toxic, and creatures there rarely live beyond 10 years. But their death is painless. At least this way, we haven't broken our promise. After all, it wasn't us who killed them. It was the planet's environment. Hearing the Emperor's words, Medusa understood clearly. But at the same time, she still thought her Emperor was too kind. When it comes to enemies, they should be completely wiped out. Your Majesty, do you have any progress? Medusa asked at this moment. Zhao Chun shrugged helplessly and smiled bitterly. If there had been any progress, I wouldn't have come all the way to the Mayha's interstellar empire to check on your situation. The 100,000 starships of unknown forces we fought against all committed suicide in some way when we cleaned up the battlefield, leaving no useful biological information behind. The data in the wreckage of the starships was also completely destroyed using very advanced methods. Fixing it would take at least a few decades. This is a well-trained, highly skilled fleet. The forces behind them are definitely not ordinary. Being targeted by such an enemy makes me very uncomfortable. So I want to find out quickly, who exactly are they? Zhao Chun narrowed his eyes. If he knew who they were, he would surely seek revenge. Medusa nodded and then said, shall we start the interrogation? Ask away, Zhao Chun nodded, looking forward to what good news these two might bring. This interrogation will be led by me personally. Your Majesty, you can watch from here, Medusa said, then walked into the room across the glass window. Zhao Chun waited here, hoping for the mystery to be revealed. Medusa looked at the two people who had been holding hands all along. She calmly said, it seems your feelings are exactly as the intelligence reports described. Princess Mina was dazed, with no emotional expression. Prince Mados lifted his head and looked at Medusa. Did you investigate us? After learning that you are the behind-the-scenes culprits, we will do everything we can to investigate you. I also know some of the stories about you. Marshal Medusa shows a nostalgic expression. If I'm not mistaken, you like this half-sister because you admire her? At that time, others didn't notice how outstanding this third princess was, but you did. No one would have guessed that the seventh prince, considered a military leader by the Mayha Star Empire, was actually a young boy who used to follow his sister around playing strategic games. All the military knowledge and skills you have were taught by your sister. Growing up like this made you develop special feelings for her. And later, your sister's experiences also touched you deeply, leading you to decide to walk this dark path for her. Whether she truly liked you or not, I don't know. She might have just wanted to use your identity as the seventh prince. The seventh prince, Midas, did not get angry at Martial Medusa's words. He turned his head and looked at the woman in front of him with pity, as if recalling when he was a child, and no one cared about him except this big sister who played with him. Are you stupid? You should have arranged for the fleet to appear here at this moment. You lost again. You really are a big fool. I'm not playing with you anymore. You always lose. You really lack awareness. Back then, this girl was very cheerful and lively, sometimes showing a mischievous smile. He was trying to keep playing with her, so he kept learning, working hard, and trying to keep up with her. He thought they would stay happy like that forever, but unexpectedly, something happened that took away the girl's smile. He saw her kneeling there, unable to stand up, and felt very sad, but he didn't dare to step forward and plead, because he was most afraid of his so-called father. Yes, he feels fear towards his own father. Later, he noticed that the girl he followed became obedient and sensible, like a big sister, and was very liked among the many royal sisters. But he felt sad because he knew that she was not the girl he had been chasing. If only everything could go back to that time, Prince Matos whispered. Now, tell me, how did you meet those people behind the scenes? What are their identities? Can they command a fleet of 100,000 interstellar warships, or AT-6, level interstellar civilization fleet? Martial Medusa then shifted to the main topic. Prince Matos was silent for a moment, and then said, honestly, I don't really know who they are. At that time, my older sister was seeking revenge. We built our own power and started planning. But our strength was too small. Back then, my older sister wanted me to take control of the military, but in our Mayha's interstellar empire, even if I became the fleet commander, it was hard to threaten the Emperor's power. We needed a better opportunity. Later, that opportunity came to us. It was a group of people in black robes, disguising their identities. They claimed to come from another powerful interstellar civilization, but for some reason, their mighty fleet couldn't all be sent here. So, they needed us to build a forward base. The benefit of working with them was that they would help us overthrow our father and achieve revenge. They showed us dozens of T-6 level interstellar warships. When we saw those T-6 ships, my older sister decided to work with them. Martial Medusa frowned slightly and asked, you didn't even know what kind of civilization they came from, yet you dared to cooperate with them? Why did you plan such a risky scheme? Prince Matos chuckled self-deprecatingly and continued, at that time, we had no other choice. When they found us, they also discovered some private things I and my third sister had done. They used this as leverage, threatening to reveal our actions if we didn't agree. So, for us back then, doing those things meant certain death. My brother wouldn't allow us to exist like that. I see, so that's how it was. Regarding this interstellar civilization force, do you have any information or intelligence about them? After all, you've been working with them for a long time. They even mobilized 100,000 starships to support your actions, Martial Medusa asked, staring at him. Prince Matos thought for a moment and then slowly said, we don't know the name of this interstellar civilization, where they come from, or how they arrived. The channels of communication are provided by them, and they have always been the ones to contact us actively. As for any information I might have learned, some of their members are special intelligent beings who can completely copy and hide another person's presence. Not just their appearance, but also their memories and personality. Oh, and you remember Duke Jomi, right? You probably investigated him, but didn't get much useful information from him. All the intelligence we obtained pointed to our second brother. Actually, Duke Jomi is one of these disguised beings. They can not only disguise their appearance, but also pass various tests, including your lie detectors. So even if he lies in front of you, your lie detection devices can't see through it. I suspect that there are quite a few of these undercover spies in our universe, and they might also exist in other interstellar civilizations. While speaking, Prince Chi also glanced at Martial Medusa. This look carried a clear message, implying that there might be spies or undercover agents within your star empire of Shalom. Martial Medusa frowned slightly. Handling such special spies is indeed difficult. With such strong disguise abilities, if there's no way to detect them, they could be hidden threats. So, the creature disguising itself as you is the one negotiating with us in the shattered universe? Martial Medusa asked. Prince Chi nodded and recalled, when I saw that guy, I was really shocked. He looked exactly like me, at least on the outside. I even worried whether they had considered replacing us with these copies. He continued. I asked directly. The representative said these copies have a short lifespan. After being created, they can only be used once. Once used, their appearance completely changes to match the target. To get memories and habits, they need to eat the target's brain. Hearing this, Prince Chi trembled slightly. He chuckled self-deprecatingly. When I heard that, I was really scared myself. Luckily, this copy of me only needed to disguise as me to meet your Emperor of Xiaolong, so the later steps weren't necessary. But now it seems they still failed. Listening to this from behind the glass window, Zhao Chun crossed his arms. He remembered meeting that Prince Chi. From his appearance and eyes, the real one and the copy looked exactly the same, like two of the same person. However, in tone and aura, the copy lacked some charm, probably missing that final step of perfect imitation. But just this alone is enough to make people feel scared. After all, if someone you know is secretly replaced by an enemy and appears beside you, it would be terrifying just to think about it. Those 100,000 interstellar warships, I don't know how they appeared. When I discovered them, they had already appeared in a star system on the border of our Mayha's interstellar empire. That star system is a remote part of my territory. I had arranged everything so that no one would notice the movement of these warships. After that, the 100,000 ships disappeared without a trace. Until this recent plan started. They told me they intended to use these ships to carry out a decapitation strike against your Xiaolong Emperor, said the seventh prince, Midos. Zhao Qin frowned slightly. Having 100,000 interstellar warships suddenly appear in the Mayha's interstellar empire, what could that mean? Why specifically the Mayha's empire and not other civilizations? Is there some special connection? Or perhaps, this civilization also exists within other star systems? All these questions now seem like a fog surrounding Zhao Chun. And what about the earliest three-headed dragon pirate group? Asked Marshal Medusa. The seventh prince, Midos, replied with self-mockery. Honestly, we were also forced onto this ship. I don't know if you'll believe it. At first, we had no idea that the three-headed dragon pirate group would attack the envoy starship of the Xiaolong Interstellar Empire. My second brother isn't foolish enough to do such a thing. And I am not either. Although we wanted to rebel and help our third sister take over the Mayha's interstellar empire, we also wanted to see the empire remain strong. We clearly understand how powerful the Xiaolong Empire is. Who would deliberately provoke you for no reason? Are you risking your life? At that time, the attack was actually planned and executed by that group first, then reported afterward. The three-headed dragon pirate group was a force they had cultivated long ago. To keep us unaware, they used a different force we knew nothing about. They forced us onto this ship of thieves. Prince Macdoss chuckled softly and shook his head, saying, by the time we found out about this, it was already too late. Even if we had spoken out then, it wouldn't have helped. So, we had no choice but to go down with the ship and stay tied to them. You all know what happened next. After hearing Prince Macdoss's explanation, Marshal Medusa almost visualized the entire process. The biggest current problem is figuring out who this mysterious interstellar civilization really is. That is the most pressing question before them. Do you know how to find the people who coordinate with you? Marshal Medusa asked. Prince Macdoss shook his head and said, we don't know. They come and go so quickly. We tried to follow them before, but all our trackers disappeared without a trace. Later, they warned us, and since then, we haven't investigated further. So, there's no clue at all now? Marshal Medusa looked at Princess Mina, who had been silent all along. She approached her and asked directly, do you have anything to say? Princess Mina remained silent. Marshal Medusa leaned down, and the little snakes on her head hissed softly. You should understand your current position. She doesn't know anything. All the dealings with the other side are handled by me. Prince Macdoss quickly defended his sister. I'm asking her, not you. The promise I made earlier was that you would cooperate with me. You cooperate with me well. But it seems that this young lady is not very willing to cooperate with me. Medusa Marshal's snake eyes fixed on the third princess, Minana. The seventh prince, Midos, looked anxiously at his older sister, holding her hand tightly. Third sister. The seventh prince's voice was very humble, trembling with a hint of pleading. The third princess, Minana, raised her head, coldly looking at Medusa Marshal and then at her brother Midos. When she looked at Midos, Her eyes showed a complex expression. After a moment of silence, she spoke. After those people appeared, I investigated privately. But in known cosmic civilizations, there are no interstellar races that match their standards. However, I did find a clue later. It is a legend from the distant past of our universe. The legend says that at that time, a huge black sphere appeared in the sky, and many monsters flew out of it. These monsters ravaged and destroyed in our universe. Then, heroes appeared and defeated these monsters. The black sphere disappeared after a while. At that time, each of these monsters bore a crest. Once, when I met those mysterious people, I saw a similar pattern on the back of a person's hand that was accidentally exposed. What pattern? Medusa Marshall immediately asked. The third princess, Manana, slowly looked up, staring at Medusa Marshall. Realizing this, Medusa Marshall raised his hand and opened a drawing board in front of her. The third princess, Manana, raised her hand and began to draw on the board. Soon, a strange pattern appeared before Medusa Marshall. Is that all? Medusa Marshall looked at the now cold and distant expression of the third princess, Manana. The third princess, Manana, replied coldly, "That's all I know. If you still don't believe it, I can't help you." Marshal Medusa did not speak and turned to leave the interrogation room. He showed the pattern from the drawing board to Zhao Chun. Zhao Chun glanced at it. It was an irregular symbol similar to a totem. It looked a lot like the emblem of their fleet. Maybe it represents the identity of this interstellar civilization. Immediately send people to investigate the origin of this symbol, Zhao Chun ordered. And what about these two people? Marshal Medusa pointed to the two inside the interrogation room. Zhao Chun calmly replied, "Just handle them as previously discussed." Marshal Medusa silently nodded. From then on, the matter of the Mayha's interstellar empire seemed to be settled on the surface. The second prince of the Mayha's interstellar empire held a press conference, blaming the attack entirely on Princess Mina and Prince Midos. He also announced that these two would be handed over to the Xianglong interstellar empire for handling. He sincerely apologized for the sacrifices made by the Xianglong empire personnel and offered generous compensation. At the same time, the Mayha's interstellar empire announced it would join the Cosmic Trade Alliance. They also planned to cooperate with the Xianglong interstellar empire on a series of space trade deals. When they saw the terms of these trade agreements, some people within the Mayha's empire naturally voiced complaints. Because the terms heavily favored the Xianglong empire, it was seen as damaging their own interests. The second prince ignored these complaints. He also announced that he would personally visit the Flower Fairy Federation's tribal universe. Flower Fairy Federation, Tribal Universe, Byron Star System, Byron City. Many people who had attended the previous meeting and had not left were still in Byron City. They were all watching what was happening with the Mayha's interstellar empire. They did not expect the Xianglong empire to respond so quickly. In less than half a month, the Xianglong interstellar empire quickly resolved this matter with swift and decisive actions. There was no intense conflict or war, but the Xianglong empire also strongly pressured the Mayha's interstellar empire. The signed agreements clearly showed their genuine intentions. As a result, the status and reputation of the Xianglong interstellar empire within the Cosmic Trade Alliance greatly improved. Moreover, this reputation became more credible and trustworthy. Previously, the empire's prestige mainly came from its military strength. Military power can make others submit and fear you outwardly. But if you want people to truly let go of their doubts and cooperate openly, military force alone isn't enough. You need to make them feel completely at ease and trust you. This time, the actions of the Xianglong Empire demonstrated this point. They are not just strong militarily, but also reasonable and fair. Of course, that depends on whether they are willing to reason with others. If they refuse to reason, then they will do as they see fit. Unexpectedly, in just over half a month, the Xianglong Interstellar Empire managed to settle this matter. It's impressive how smoothly it was handled. No war was fought, yet the empire also showed its authority and status. Yes, being able to make the other side pay such a large compensation, sign a series of agreements, and willingly hand over the two main culprits for the empire to deal with. It's remarkable. In the luxurious hall, banquets are held every day. The starry traders who haven't left, along with leaders from various civilizations, are here talking, networking, and forming new partnerships. Among the topics of conversation, the most discussed is naturally the affairs of the Xianlong interstellar empire. Now, you can finally rest assured, right? The Xianlong interstellar empire handled this matter so well. Queen of the Water Elves, Meritus, looked at her sisters, Huaya Lanlan and Huaya Nini, sitting across from her. Lanlan nodded and said, I was worried there might be a conflict before, but they managed everything so efficiently. The Xianlong interstellar empire really knows how to find its place. They understand clearly when to use certain methods and when not to. They are not just war lovers who only know how to start fights. Nini teased, so, in your eyes, the Xianlong interstellar empire is just a war-loving empire? Lanlan glared at her sister. But Meritus smiled gently and said, this matter isn't as simple as it looks. Lanlan also looked serious and said, it seems the Queen of Elves has heard some news. Meritus nodded slowly and said, when something is this big, others might not know, but people at our level definitely do. Mobilizing 100,000 starships to ambush and attack the Xianlong Emperor, that takes real courage. In this vast universe, I can't think of anyone else brave enough to do that. Nini muttered, I was also surprised when I heard about this. Who has such guts? They dared to provoke the Xianlong interstellar empire. Remember, the Xianlong empire can fight against civilizations of devouring power. Among all cosmic civilizations, they are the strongest in terms of strength. Hearing her sister say this, Lanlan gently nudged Nini. Nini was momentarily stunned, but she quickly understood when she saw Queen Meritus's reaction. Before, this position belonged to the Holy Elves Empire, but now, it has been taken over by the Xianlong interstellar empire. At this moment, bringing up this matter in front of others is like adding salt to a wound. Huayani Yani immediately stuck out her tongue, pretending she wasn't interested. I think the Xianlong Star Empire is also investigating this matter. However, because it's a special case, spreading the details could cause serious problems. So publicly, they only announced the attack itself and blamed the two princes and princesses. It's like they've put a stop to the story on the surface, said the Water Spirit King, Meritus, without minding Huayani Yani's careless words, and continued discussing the issue. It seems that your Majesty, the Water Spirit King, cares a lot about this matter? Hua Yalanlin looked at the Water Spirit King. Everyone knows that the High Elves of the Holy Elf Empire, especially the Elf Kings, are very proud and confident. They usually act as if they don't care about external affairs. Now, showing such interest in the Xianlong Star Empire's affairs is quite rare. Meritus clearly understood what Hua Yalanlin meant from her expression. She smiled lightly and said, we naturally don't pay attention to weaker beings' affairs. But now, the Xianlong Star Empire's status is on the same level as our Holy Elf Empire. We need to pay more attention, especially since this incident involves someone daring to attack the Xianlong Emperor in the known universe. How can that not pique our curiosity? Also, such a star civilization, does it pose a threat to us? That's something we need to consider. Listening to Meritus's explanation, Hua Yalanlin didn't mind whether her words were true or false. At that moment, Hua Yalanlin's terminal flashed with high-frequency light. Your Majesty? Hua Yani, nearby, noticed this and immediately said excitedly. The Water Spirit Queen, Meritus, listened without speaking but cast a curious look. Hannah Lanlan opened the communication window. Zhao Qin's image appeared on the screen. I'm back. You all need to come here immediately. I have something I might need your help with. By the way, I heard that the Water Spirit Queen, Meritus, is with you. So just come together. Zhao Qin's voice said. The Water Spirit Queen, Meritus, covered her mouth and chuckled softly. Emperor Xiaolong really doesn't like to spend much effort. He didn't even bother to send me a notice. It seems there's a big difference between people. Zhao Qin didn't mind her teasing and smiled gently. This might make you curious. If Meritus is busy, you don't have to come. I'll be waiting for you on my ship. After saying that, Zhao Qin ended the call. Looking at the darkened video window, Hannah Lanlan teased Meritus. Do you think the Water Spirit Queen might want to come along? Meritus sighed helplessly. I'm just a small figure. How dare I refuse the invitation from Emperor Xiaolong? Nini, standing nearby, pouted and muttered, I think you're just curious about what the Emperor wants to discuss. Since they had spent more time together, Meritus would also be responsible for the Holy Spirit Empire's intergalactic trade. So, she interacted more with Hannah Lanlan and her sister. As they got to know each other better, The relationship became more relaxed, like normal friends. Meritus smiled softly and didn't say anything in reply. Afterward, the three of them arrived at the Starship Command Center of the Dragon Emperor, docked at the White Orchid City starport. This was a small private room, similar to a guest lounge. It was decorated with many green plants, making it look very elegant. Han Lan and the others entered and saw Emperor Zhao Chun sitting in a chair, drinking tea. "Since we're all friends, feel free to sit anywhere," Zhao Chun said casually, waving his hand. The room had a slightly traditional Chinese style, with no table in the middle, just a few chairs arranged around. Everyone took their seats. A robot brought in tea. "How have things been with the Cosmic Trade Alliance while I was away? Has it been affected?" Zhao Qin asked with concern. The Cosmic Trade Alliance was a key part of the Dragon Star Empire's economy. Whether the Empire could develop and support many fleet armies depended on how smoothly the alliance operated. Han Lan reported. In the first few days after the incident, people were hesitant. But after the Dragon Star Empire made a statement, everyone felt more at ease. Now, the issue is mostly settled, and it was resolved in a very good way. This greatly boosted the reputation of the Dragon Star Empire. In recent days, the entire Cosmic Trade Alliance has started to develop normally. Right now, the trade volume is only about 20% of what we expected. This is because of the initial problems and the many steps still needed to be arranged. But with our active efforts, we expect to reach our target trade volume within 3 months, and it will continue to grow after that. Hearing this report, Zhao Chun nodded in relief. "Now, tell me what's happening with the Mayha's interstellar empire." The water spirit Queen Meritus, usually so dignified, now looked at Zhao Chun with a curious and playful expression. Hua Lan and Hua Yanini also perked up their ears. Since their identities are different from the water spirit Queen Meritus, they felt a bit shy to ask about this directly. However, they were still very interested in the matter. Seeing that the water spirit Queen Meritus was asking him directly, Zhao Chun didn't hide anything and simply said, "I called you here mainly because of this issue. You probably heard that, although the official story is about the 3 princesses and the 7th prince of the Mayha's interstellar empire, there is actually a hidden mastermind behind them. But so far, we still don't know who this mastermind is. Neither the 3 princesses nor the 7th prince know either. The other side is very cautious and secretive. But we have found some clues. Whether it's the Holy Spirit Empire or the White Orchid Interstellar Trade Group, you both have many sources for gathering information. So I want to see if you recognize anything or can provide any useful clues." As he spoke, Zhao Chun raised his hand, and a hologram appeared in front of everyone. It was a strange symbol. The water spirit Queen Meritus and the Huaya sisters stared at it curiously, examining the strange pattern. Zhao Chun explained, "This is a clue provided by Princess Minana. It should be a symbol of the hidden interstellar force behind the scenes, like a fleet emblem or an empire totem. But according to the data from our Dragon Star Empire's network, we haven't found any information about this symbol. Take a look and see if your channels can identify it." The 3 women carefully studied the symbol again. "May I use the White Orchid Interstellar Trade Group's database to verify this?" Hua Nini asked Zhao Chun. "Yes, but try not to let others find out," Zhao Chun replied. Flower Bud Lan nodded, then began to operate herself. First, she scanned and recorded the pattern, then compared it with the data in their White Orchid Interstellar Trade Group's database. Although the White Orchid Interstellar Trade Group is mainly a trading organization, it is also a large intelligence agency. Whenever an interstellar transport ship or a starship convoy travels to a star region or galaxy, they gather local intelligence, which is stored here. This intelligence is very valuable. It can provide the group with business information and, when necessary, even help prevent major disasters. The Water Spirit King, Marites, carefully examined the pattern. She squinted her eyes, as if recalling something. Zhao Chun did not rush her, just waited quietly and sipped his tea now and then. Soon, Lan stopped her work and looked at the Dragon Emperor, apologizing shyly. "Your Majesty, I am very sorry. I checked many databases but couldn't find any information related to this." "It's okay," Zhao Chun waved his hand. "This thing, I think I have seen it somewhere," Marites suddenly said, which caught Zhao Chun's attention. He looked at her in surprise. "You have seen it?" "Yes, but I can't remember where. As you know, we elves have a long lifespan, travel to many places, and see many things. Sometimes, it's hard to recall everything. But I am sure I have seen this before, she said confidently. Then think carefully again, Zhao Chun said seriously. Do you have any other useful information? Marites asked. Zhao Chun thought for a moment and said, the mastermind behind this attack is probably a T6 level interstellar civilization, possibly even a near T7 level civilization. Because during their attack on my war, there were many T6 class interstellar warships, and even a nearly T7 class interstellar warship. Additionally, they have a type of creature used specifically for espionage. It is unknown whether this creature is naturally born or artificially cultivated. However, its function is very special. It can mimic and copy a person's appearance, but only once in a lifetime. Once used, the lifespan of the copied person begins to count down. After copying, the appearance, fingerprints, and pupils are exactly the same. Our equipment cannot tell who is the real person and who is the copy. So, I want to investigate this matter thoroughly before taking any action. Yes, it is important to investigate carefully. Hanaya Lanlan nodded in agreement. I just remembered. At this moment, the water spirit King Marites suddenly exclaimed, I saw it at the Nightshade Spirit King Wanyans. Nightshade Spirit King Wanyans? Hanaya Lanlan muttered in surprise. Hanaya Nini then said worriedly, Your Majesty just mentioned that this interstellar force has the ability to send out clones. Is it possible that this Nightshade Spirit King Wanyans is actually a clone? Suddenly, it felt like a dark cloud was hanging over everyone's heads. Are you sure? Did you see it on the Nightshade Spirit King Wanyans? Zhao Chen looked very serious at Water Spirit King Marites. If the Nightshade Spirit King Wanyans really has that symbol, it could mean he is actually an undercover agent from that interstellar force. Just thinking about it makes people feel very uneasy. A king of the Sacred Elf Empire, standing at the top of the power pyramid, might actually be a puppet controlled by another alien civilization. If such things are happening within the Sacred Elf Empire, could they also be happening in other civilizations? And even under Zhao Chen's own watch, could this be happening in the Shadow Dragon Interstellar Empire? Zhao Chen's fleet, the Shadow Dragon Legion, he doesn't need to worry about that. But within his territories, can he be sure such things aren't happening? Thinking of this, Zhao Chen's face grew serious. This matter must not be taken lightly. Marites showed a thoughtful expression. I'm not sure if I saw it on the Nightshade Spirit King Wanyans. I only remember that when I saw that symbol, it was probably at the Nightshade Spirit King Wanyans, but that was a long time ago. So, I can't remember the exact details. Zhao Chen thought for a moment and said seriously, to solve the problem, we need to find the person responsible. Exactly. Let's go find the main person, he added. Marites, could you help introduce us? We want to go to the Holy Elf Empire and meet the Nightshade Elf King, Zhao Chen requested. Arranging a meeting with onions isn't difficult, Marites replied. But do you really want to go in person? She looked worried. Like you said before, if onions has really been replaced, then you, the Dragon Emperor, going there yourself might be very risky. Zhao Chun smiled slightly and said calmly, if I face this Elf King Onions directly, then he should be worried about his own safety. Since there's no problem, let's leave now, he decided. Hua Yalanlan and Hua Yanini, the two sisters, continued to handle the Cosmic Trade Alliance affairs. Later, representatives from the Mayha's Interstellar Empire would come for business talks, and they would be responsible for the negotiations. Yes, the sisters responded. Although they were very curious about this matter, their main job was to manage interstellar trade, so they needed to focus on their own responsibilities first. Hua Yalanlan and Hua Yanini said goodbye and left the Dragon Emperor starship. Zhao Chun was very efficient. Since Marites had agreed, they set out immediately. Marites had no objections. She boarded Zhao Chen's Dragon Emperor starship, ready to return to the Holy Elf Empire. She had already arranged everything she needed to, and any matters requiring her presence were handled. The rest was left to the staff stationed in White Orchid City. She stayed here mainly because she cared about what was happening in the Mayha's Interstellar Empire. Soon, the Dragon Emperor starship and the accompanying escort fleet arrived within the borders of the Holy Elf Empire. This time, it was different from usual because they were going to meet the Nightshade Elf King, Onions. Their fleet appeared within the territory controlled by the King of the Night Spirit Elves. The Queen of the Blue Water Elves, Marites, had already informed the King of the Night Spirit Elves, Onions. She straightforwardly said that the Emperor of the Howling Dragon wanted to meet him. Since the Howling Dragon Emperor travels with great fanfare, it is very difficult to meet a king of the elves quietly within the Holy Elf Empire. Rather than doing that, it's better to be open and ask directly for a meeting. Wonyans, the king of the Night Spirit Elves, did not refuse and directly invited Zhao Chun, the Howling Dragon Emperor, to the Night Spirit Palace. The Night Spirit Palace is similar to a space city like Luoyang or Chang'an, located on the outer edge of the main star of the Night Spirit Elf star system. It is a floating artificial palace, very natural in style. From afar, it looks like a satellite orbiting the main star of the Night Spirit Elves. You can see many meteor craters on its surface. In fact, it is a modified satellite. When the Starship Commander Dragon Emperor arrived nearby, Zhao Qin saw several crater locations with passages that lead into the interior of the Night Spirit Palace. Transforming a satellite into a space city is a common way to build such cities, using existing materials to reduce costs. However, this kind of space city requires high technical skill. Good space cities are very impressive, while poor ones are very basic. Poor ones are simply satellites with a hole cut in them, lacking any real technology. The best ones, like the Night Spirit Palace, seem ordinary on the outside but are extraordinary inside. After the Starship Commander Dragon Emperor docked, Zhao Qin looked at the interior structure and found it hard to believe it was built inside a satellite. Because elves love aesthetics, the entire interior is full of artistic beauty, making it very attractive and perfect for photos. When Zhao Chun left the interstellar command ship Dragon Emperor and reached the corridor, he saw the king of the Night Spirit Elves, Wonyans, already waiting there. He was dressed in black, with a cold, unchanging expression on his face. His stance made it look like he was here to demand payment, not to greet someone. Zhao Chun and the Water Spirit King, Meritus, approached him. Honestly, I didn't expect your Majesty Wonyans to come personally to greet me, Zhao Chun said, looking surprised. Before Wonyans could refuse, he warmly shook his hand. Wonyans frowned slightly, showing some dislike for the enthusiasm of the Dragon Emperor. After Zhao Chun let go, he deliberately wiped his hand on his clothes behind his back. He answered coldly, I didn't want to come at first. But since you're the Dragon Emperor, your status is clear. If you come to me, I should also come to greet you. It would be rude to the Night Spirit Elves if I didn't. After saying that, Wonyans turned and walked forward as if his enthusiasm had already been used up during the greeting. Zhao Chun and Meritus exchanged a glance and smiled, then followed without hesitation. However, after walking a short distance, Wonyans stopped. He looked back at the two behind him, especially at the Dragon Emperor, with a look of discomfort. Why are you walking behind me? Wonyans asked coldly. This is your territory. We're not familiar here, so we need you to lead the way, Zhao Qin explained with a smile. Wonyans hesitated, realizing that might be true. He continued walking, but after a while, he stopped again. He couldn't hold back and looked back at the Dragon Emperor with a stern face. Dragon Emperor, is there something on me? Really? You can see that so clearly? Zhao Qin said, pretending to be surprised. King Onions of the Night Elf, with his icy face like a mountain of ice, began to twitch uncontrollably. Could it be more obvious? That intense gaze. If I didn't know this guy was already married, I might suspect he has some unusual hobbies. Such things have happened before among elves. Because elves, regardless of gender, are very handsome, and when people from other races see them, even among same-sex pairs, it often leads to some special situations. You could say they attract both men and women. There are some things, but it's not convenient to talk about here now. You keep leading the way ahead. I promise I won't stare at you, Zhao Qin said. King Onions of the Night Elf frowned. He knew that the Dragon Emperor, the Xianlong Emperor, was definitely the type to show up uninvited. And the relationship between the two of them has always been tense. Now, under the recommendation of Queen Marites of the Blue Water Elves, they are meeting. There must be something special going on. King Onions of the Night Elf didn't speak. Soon after, Zhao Qin's gaze did soften quite a bit. Before long, the three of them arrived at a private room. This room is only for my use, absolutely confidential. Speak. Why did you come to see me? What's the matter? King Onions of the Night Elf still maintained a distant attitude. He seemed very reluctant to entertain Zhao Qin here, eager to see him leave as soon as possible. Zhao Qin looked around, sat in a chair, crossed his legs, and looked at the empty table. He smiled and said, "Is this how your night elf tribe welcomes guests? We traveled a long way here, and you won't even offer us a drink?" King Onions of the night elf's mouth twitched again. He raised his hand and tapped a few times on the virtual screen in front of him. Then Zhao Chun looked at the glass of water in front of him, and his expression became a bit stiff. Then he looked at the water elf King Meritus beside him and made a teasing face. It seemed like he was asking, "How did this guy become your elf king?" The water elf King Meritus appeared not to notice and quietly took a sip of water. Zhao Chun spoke after 5 years, saying, "This time, we came because our team was attacked by the Mayha's interstellar empire. I know about this. You've already handled it, right? What does it have to do with me?" The Night Elf King Wonyan said coldly. "To keep the situation stable, we announced that it was taken care of. But in reality, we haven't caught the real mastermind yet. We also have very few clues. Earlier, I had a clue and asked Meritus if she had seen it. She said she saw it here with you. So we came specifically to ask you," Zhao Chun said, staring at the Night Elf King Wonyans. He kept paying attention to the king's emotional changes. "Ask me?" The Night Elf King Wonyans looked at the Water Elf King with confusion, still not understanding what was really going on. Zhao Chun raised his hand and showed the totem pattern directly. "It's this thing." Before Zhao Chun could finish, the Night Elf King Wonyans suddenly stood up. Zhao Chun moved at the same time, and their hands met and clasped. "Where did you see this thing?" The Night Elf King Wonyans stared at Zhao Chun, and his usually calm eyes suddenly flashed with a threatening look. "We saw it. We really didn't mistake anyone. Your Majesty, the Night Elf King, you do recognize this thing," Zhao Chun said, looking directly at him. "How do you know about this?" The aura around the Night Elf King Wonyans grew stronger, even trying to use force to suppress Zhao Chun. But after half a minute, the Kagaya Spirit King was directly pressed against the table by Zhao Chun. "Your pose could cause misunderstandings," said the Blue Water Spirit Queen, Meritus, with a flirtatious look at the two. "First, let him answer honestly. What is your relationship with the force behind this symbol?" Zhao Chun narrowed his eyes at the visibly emotional Kagaya Spirit King, Wonyans. Wonyans also gritted his teeth and roared, "You first clarify your relationship with that force." At this moment, Wonyans was no longer the calm, icy figure he usually was. His whole body radiated a fierce, killing intent. Seeing the two refuse to back down, Meritus looked suspicious and said, "I feel there might be some misunderstanding between you two. First, let's clarify one thing. You both are enemies, not friends, of the force behind that symbol, right?" Zhao Chun and Wonyans looked at each other and nodded simultaneously. Seeing this, Meritus sighed in relief and said, "In that case, no matter what, you're not enemies now. Let go first, and let's sit down to talk properly." After a moment of silence, Zhao Chun said, "I'll let go. Stay calm." "Humph." Wonyan snorted coldly, but inwardly, he recognized Zhao Chun's growing strength. It is well known that humans have average physical qualities compared to many interstellar races. The elves of the Holy Spirit Empire, however, are known for their superior physical strength. Wonyans also has a possibly forgotten identity. He was once the champion in close combat within the Kagaya elf clan multiple times. This ancient close combat skill is preserved only by the Kagaya elves. Other elf clans have long abandoned it. Just now, the Imperial Dragon Emperor was able to completely suppress him, leaving no room for resistance. It's easy to see that the strength to overpower the Night Sky Elf King, Wonyans, shows how powerful and tough the Imperial Dragon Emperor's body and fighting skills are. Zhao Chun released his grip at this moment, but he stayed alert. The Night Sky Elf King, Wonyans, stood up with a cold face and looked at the Imperial Dragon Emperor. He didn't make a move. Both of them retreated to their own positions. But the atmosphere was still tense and ready to explode. It was clear that if this misunderstanding wasn't cleared up, these two would soon be at odds. "All right, everyone sit down and talk calmly. Zhao Chun, you go first. Tell us how you knew about this symbol," said the Water Elf Queen, Meritus, seeing the tense situation. Zhao Chun didn't hide anything. He told the Night Sky Elf King, Wonyans, about the symbol they found during the investigation of the recent attack. After hearing Zhao Chun's story, Wonyan's expression softened a bit, but he still looked as cold as before. "All right, I've said everything I need to say. Now it's your turn. How do you know about this symbol? I believe you must know a lot, or you wouldn't be so emotional just now, Zhao Chen said, narrowing his eyes and staring at Wanyans. Wanyans was silent for a moment, then said coldly, Meritus, do you remember the tragedy that happened in the Night Sky Galaxy 600 years ago? Night Sky Galaxy. When she heard this, the gentle and steady water elf queen, Meritus, suddenly looked very serious. Wanyans looked at Zhao Chen, raised his hand, and started operating a device. From the way he moved, it was clear that the document was heavily encrypted. Finally, he even scanned some biological data of Wanyans himself before the document fully opened. The Nightfall Galaxy was once the third largest galaxy of our Bright Night Fairy clan and was very prosperous. However, 600 years ago, a terrible disaster happened in the Nightfall Galaxy. In just one day, the entire galaxy was destroyed. Hundreds of billions of Bright Night Fairies lost their lives in that disaster. When he said this, King Wanyans of the Bright Night Fairies clenched his fists, filled with intense anger. Zhao Chen looked curious. He had seen some records about this when he previously studied the archives of the Holy Fairy Empire. But there was very little information available. Most details were briefly mentioned. Such a destruction of a galaxy has happened in many universes before. Most of the time, it was predictable. The local leaders would evacuate early, and the process would take several years or even decades. But in the case of the Nightfall Galaxy, it was very rare for a galaxy to vanish suddenly without warning just the day before. You probably saw in the records that the Nightfall Galaxy was destroyed in a cosmic disaster, King Wanyans said coldly. Then he added, actually, there was another reason behind it. He took a deep breath and pointed to some photos on the documents. Maybe you don't know this. The Nightfall Galaxy is my hometown. I was just a child then, a Bright Night Fairy. My family sent me to the first Galaxy's Academy to study, hoping I would achieve something someday. But I never expected that when I returned to my home galaxy, I couldn't find my family anymore. My parents, my brothers and sisters, all of them perished in that disaster. At that time, the Bright Night Fairy King announced that it was a natural cosmic disaster. Nightshade Spirit King Onions clenched his fist, his expression cold with a hint of anger. But our galaxy has always been stable. How could such a cosmic disaster happen suddenly? Although my family was gone, I used our old connections to return to the sealed Nightshade Galaxy. These are some images I captured at that time. Zhao Chen carefully examined the scene before him. He was shocked to see that the images of this galaxy were very strange. There were broken planets and shattered interstellar ships. Even the stars had no light and were in pieces. The entire galaxy looked like a forgotten place fallen into a deep abyss with no signs of life. This is definitely a scene after a disaster. But scientists who study cosmic disasters can tell at a glance that this was not caused by a natural event. It was caused by human actions. Wow, so that's what happened. I remember the records from that time. Suddenly, the Nightshade Galaxy lost all contact with the outside world. All the stargates connecting to the outside were cut off. Some starships traveling to investigate the galaxy disappeared into hyperspace, causing accidents involving hundreds of ships. Even the fleet trying to reach the galaxy using faster-than-light travel faced strong space storms when approaching the galaxy's edge. Even T5-class ships had difficulty getting close. It wasn't until a day later that these effects eased. Only then could the investigating fleets enter. The Water Spirit Queen, Marites, recalled the situation and whispered, "Who would have thought this was done by humans? But which force has such terrifying power?" Zhao Chen looked thoughtful and said nearby, "So it was human-made? Some interstellar force destroyed your Nightshade Galaxy a day ago without alerting the Holy Spirit Empire. Our Holy Spirit Empire was once considered the strongest interstellar civilization in the known universe," said the Water Spirit King, Meritus, with amazement. "There is nothing impossible about it. After all, there are still people who dare to attack the Xianglong Star Empire and its emperor," said the Night Spirit King, Aeonians, glancing at Zhao Chen. His hint was very clear. Even now, some dare to attack the rising Xianglong Emperor. In the past, attacking a star system was not impossible. "Did you just cover up this news back then?" Zhao Chen asked curiously. Aeonians replied, "Yes, the Spirit Kings held a meeting at the Spirit King level. Because the attackers' strength and motives were unknown, and their power was extraordinary, the Spirit Kings decided not to reveal this matter until they had investigated it. After all, there are threats like devouring civilizations and chaos outside, and the Holy Spirit Empire was already under great pressure, just maintaining order on the surface. If this incident had come out at that time, and the lower levels lost their confidence, it would have been a disaster for the Empire. That's why the decision was made. Later, the responsibility of investigating this matter was given to the then Spirit King of Night. But until he stepped down, he never fully investigated what happened. One Spirit King didn't investigate thoroughly? Zhao Chen asked suspiciously. Aeonian saw through Zhao Chen's guess and said calmly, "Don't think about that." The Night Spirit King had no ill intentions. He always took care of me. He is my uncle. My mother also died in that disaster. She was his most beloved sister. He kept investigating this matter, even risking himself to go to many places, which caused him to suffer from many incurable illnesses. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died so early. During his hundreds of years of investigation, he only shared some intelligence with me. One of the recurring symbols is this pattern. The King of Elves, Onions, showed several patterns that look very similar to the one Zhao Chen brought out. You were right earlier. This pattern probably represents the mysterious interstellar civilization. They have very advanced space technology and have long been interested in our universe. However, for some reasons, they can only send part of their forces here and cannot fully enter our universe. We also found some written messages from them. Based on the meanings of certain words, we call this interstellar force the Conqueror civilization. Their culture is full of aggressive and conquering energy. They have at least a semi-T7 level of space technology, and reaching this level has probably taken hundreds or even thousands of years. They also likely possess several powerful technological techniques. The King of Elves, Onions, looked at Zhao Chun and continued. This is similar to the supernova ultimate bomb technology your Star Dragon Empire controls. The disaster in the Nightfall Galaxy was probably caused by them using similar advanced technology. This also explains why the Conqueror civilization, despite being nearly T7, has not been destroyed by the Order. It's because they, like your Star Dragon Empire, have access to this super technology, allowing them to resist the Order until now. Zhao Chen narrowed his eyes. But, as far as we know, this civilization doesn't exist in the known universe. You might also be familiar with a theory called the universal cluster theory. Different universes can have a gathering effect, forming a universal cluster. Communication and interaction between these clusters are easier. Once you reach a T5 level or higher in space civilization, you can generally travel across universes within these clusters. Reaching T6 interstellar civilization allows you to explore the borders of the entire universe group. Between different universe groups, there is a vast dark area, similar to the ocean between continents. This huge dark region is very difficult for our T6 technological civilization to cross. It is estimated that only a true T7 interstellar civilization can have the ability to connect and communicate between universe groups. The Water Spirit King, Meritus, frowned and said, "That doesn't seem right. Since this Conqueror civilization is only a quasi-T7 interstellar civilization, how do they have the technology to reach our universe group?" King Wonions of the Night Elf replied in a deep voice, "This is what I am investigating. Using the clues about the Conqueror civilization I received from my uncle, I continued to look into this matter. I found that in every universe galaxy where these Conqueror civilizations appeared, there was always something present." Zhao Chun and Meritus looked surprised. Everyone knows about white holes, but compared to black holes, white holes are much less noticeable. The reason is that finding a white hole is much more difficult than finding a black hole. White holes are very hidden, and unlike black holes, their locations are unpredictable and constantly changing.